Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Part 5 Vedas White Man's Research and Analysis The Good and Bad Aspects. In the condition that is prevailing now, we have to learn about our own religion and Vedas only from the research and analysis findings of the so called Orientalists and Indologists, who are basically Westerners and their Indian followers. They have done human's job all right, for which we have to be thankful with sincere gratitude. I do appreciate the many useful researches conducted by people like Max Muller, who had real and genuine respect for what the Vedas contained. They have taken a lot of pains and efforts to look for the materials from every nook and corner of this vast country, collect, organize, and publish their findings to be useful for generation to come. There was one Sir William Jones who was a judge in the Calcutta High Court more than 300 years back. He had started an Asiatic society whose books on Vedas are astounding to say the least. Max Muller, with the help of the East India Company, had published the Rig Veda and Bhashyam by Sayana. They have also published many other Hindu religious books of significance. Not only Englishmen, but many from France, Germany, and Russia have also done some wonderful jobs in researching Indian religious manuscripts. There have been such Westerners who used to celebrate their research, saying that their discoveries in Hindu Vedas were more significant than Columbus' discovery of America. Think about it. Searching for a needle in a haystack may have been easier. Think of the disparities and problems in languages, backgrounds, comprehensions, attitudes, and of communications, transportation, and crudifying methods available those days for making copies. Think of the diffidence to part with matters of religious significance and hand them over to people who are untouchable, Pardeshi or foreigners, who may be non vegetarians for all you know. Still, despite insurmountable difficulties, Vedas, its Angas and Upangas, with Dharma, Griya, Shruta, Sutras, have been collected from all over the country and published with authoritative translations and commentaries. Not only Vedas, Tantra and Kundalini Yoga were made world famous only by the singular contributions of Sir John Woodruff, who was an officer in the Indian Railways, writing with a pseudonym as Arthur Avalon. There have been many such do-goodies among the Britishers. Lord Curzon, when he was the Viceroy, enacted the Protection of Ancient Monuments Act, which was instrumental in saving many Hindu temples from being demolished. One Mr. Ferguson photographed all the temples in the country for their architectural and sculptural beauty, indicative of the sophistication of our cultural heritage, and published them. Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Mortimer Wheeler, Sir John Marshall are the archaeologists worth quoting for their contributions in Indology. One Mr. Mackenzie collected the palm leaf manuscripts from all over the country. It was during his time or shortly afterwards that a government department of epigraphy came into being. Thus, though the Britishers' rule was a period of slavery for this country, there were individual great persons who did a lot of good on their own individual capacity or as agents of the government. But the main aim of the Britishers as rulers of this country was to sustain themselves in power forever. So it was a confirmed governmental strategy of theirs to explore all possible ways and means to identify, create, and expand as much differences as possible based on logic and or on fiction and cannot, if need be, between people and people at every level of the fabric of Indian society. The so called Orientalists and Indologists, as an arm of the government, were mainly interested in such direction of purpose. To spread the Christian religion was another motive. In the pretext of scientifically researching into the history of India, one of the major areas of emphasis was to create the Aryan versus the Dravidian divide in the name of Pugattu Arivu Kaliga, meaning learn by differentiation. Anything beyond their understanding and comprehension was called allegorical, symbolic, or mythological, open to any misinterpretation. As per the theory of evolution, the interpreters were all far advanced, modern, and sophisticated in their opinion. The rishis of yore they were interpreting were crude primitives. This would be the background of their approach to analysis and interpretations. Then they were also those making a show of their balanced, unbiased approach, mainly interested in ridiculing the Indian heritage so as to favorably impress upon Indians here for conversion into Christianity. The same logic went hand in hand in impressing people back home about their missionary zeal. I must, however, accept that there were always some exceptions to the trend. There were philologists and philosophers who were genuinely sincere and serious in their research as they were motivated by the many parallels between English and Sanskrit languages and the intrinsic value of the nuggets of ideas, thoughts, and concepts of the Sanatana Dharma appealing to the inner man. They deserve our appreciation for their work and application. The very idea of learning, practicing, and spreading Vedas and Veda Karma activities is so as to benefit all the life forms, the worlds, and the universe. Instead of that, intellectual analysis of the Vedas, which are essentially beyond the reach of human comprehension, and to make huge books of what should be living in human speech and action was like keeping a living useful animal in the museum. The research into fixing the date of the Vedas. When we say that Vedas are anadi, it is not acceptable to the Westerners' attitude and understanding. However much they may stand on impartiality and scientific approach, at least some of them could never come to accept such superior status for the books of, after all, Hindus. Some more people yet again would accept anything only on very scientific analysis. There are many Indians and Hindus too who have approached this problem in that frame of mind. There are two methods in these calculations of trying to arrive at the date of the Vedas. One is the astronomical method, and the other is through analysis of the way the language has evolved. But whatever method used, they have not arrived at any consensus. Each expert says something different. B.G. Tilakar says that the Vedas are of 6000 BC, some others quote 3000 BC, yet others have pulled it as close to 1500 BC. Other religion books do not have this sort of a problem. Buddhist Tripitaka is said to have been written around the time of Ashoka and that it contains the Upadeshas as given by Buddha and can be fixed at 500 BC. Bible's New Testament is dated to be approximately 2000 years old. Quran is about 1300 years old. These dates are all universally acceptable. But in the case of Vedas, there is no consensus. I told you that there are two types of time analysis. I must explain that a little more of this in detail. In the Vedas, there is a description at one place of a particular conjunction of planets and stars. That conjunction has been calculated to have possibly occurred in the past, say in 6000 BC. But this calculation does not rule out the possibility that Vedas could have been of yet another earlier such cosmic conjunction. Not only in this creation, the same planetary positions could have occurred in a previous cycle of creation too. How to come to a decision on these things? The rishis were capable of seeing beyond the limits of time and space with extrasensory perceptions, then to try and bring their findings within the purview of time and space is being rather inane to say the least. Anyhow, these astronomical calculations have not been very conclusive. There has been another method of approach through the analysis of the language. In this analysis, we have to take into consideration the spoken language and script. In our country, the earliest lipi or script for any language has been Brahmi. It is totally different to the Sanskrit, Devanagari script and the Tamil script. But after studying hundreds of years of authoritative recordings in various palm leaves, copper and other metal plates and stone carvings, a comparative study of how these scripts could have evolved has been made. What is clear from this study is that all these latter day scripts, which are totally without any similarities, have evolved out of the root Brahmi only. I used to look at some of these letters of Brahmi and wonder if some of these letters drew mosaics or horns for themselves and changed over to Devanagari or Tamil, respectively. These changes could be correctly identified over a time scale, thereby arriving at the approximate date of the metal plate stone carving. As far as Vedas are concerned, they have never been inscribed on metal or stone. So, this procedure of deciding the period based on lipi or script does not apply in deciding the age of Vedas. Through the language, there is another method of analyzing the time of Vedas, that is, based on an analysis of the form of the sound of the words. Many Tamil words in usage in the Sangha column are totally unrecognizable now, and vice versa. Some words get worn out or lose shape and sound or obtain different meaning. Nowadays, in Tamil, if someone is Veguli, he is considered to be rather innocent. The earlier meaning used to be a person who was prone to anger. There is a word manda in Tamil. It has come to mean dead, but its original meaning was respectable. Since everyone becomes respectable after death, the word manda has assumed the meaning of someone who is no more. Such changes have happened in Sanskrit too. As we can understand later day Sanskrit literature, we cannot understand the Sanskrit of the Vedas easily. This happens in all languages. In the English language, for example, today's English world cannot understand a word of what is known as the Old English or Anglo-Saxon, as the changes in it have happened within less than 1,000 years. How a sound of a word undergoes changes slowly over time has been analyzed, and philologists have come to some understanding of the time frame, though these calculations can never be conclusive. but can only guess estimates. A word in Sanskrit is called Shabdam, which can be literally translated as sound. So, in Sanskrit, a word and a sound are synonymous. Every 200 years, a sound undergoes so many changes or mutations. Taking a word in Veda and analysis as to how it could have changed shape to a present day word, the analysts arrive at a conclusion that it must have undergone, say, 10 changes. Thus, they have arrived at a conclusion that Vedas could be as old as anywhere between 2000 to 6000 years old. Thus, Vedas cannot be older than 4000 BC. These are the sort of opinions expressed. I will give you a counter argument. In our houses, we use many type of utensils. Some are used every day and some are used rarely. The pressure cooker those days, Vengalapani, has to be used daily, maybe even twice a day. It has to be cleaned and reused. Compare this with a huge container of water which may be used only occasionally and cleaned maybe once in a blue moon. By their wearing out, we cannot arrive at any conclusion of their relative age. Similarly, in languages too, the words used in day to day conversation may undergo much change, but this logic cannot be applicable to the Veda Shabdas. Yes, Vedas are chanted every day, but how are they chanted? Though chanted every day, they are pronounced without letting any aberration of the original sound. I am going to expand on this subject later, but suffice it to say here that all the efforts had been taken to see to it that Vedas do not undergo the sort of mutations that other words have too. They remained unchanged over very long periods because of special efforts. Out of Vedas, Rigvedam is the earliest, then Yajus, Sama, and Atharva in that order. In each branch of the Veda, Samhita is the earlier portion. Brahmanam was added later and Aranyakam came at the end. People make calculations based on the differences in the language of Samhita, Brahmana, and Aranyaka. But the trouble is that, however much you may analyze, since they are not looking at the fact that Vedas were specially protected against the type of changes that would have occurred in the spoken languages. None of these guess estimates are acceptable for being far from the truth. Then, if you claim that despite the efforts to guard against changes, the Shabdas may have undergone changes, then your scale may have to be broadened to 2000 years. For every small change, wear and tear of words applicable to normal spoken languages is simply not applicable to Vedas. Hindi became a language only within the past 300 years or so, but since it is spread over a vast area, absorbing in itself Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, English, and so on, within a short period it has changed a lot. Tamil has comparatively remained restricted to a smaller geographic area, but even then, Thai songs are easier to understand compared to Kambaramayanam. But if we go back successively from Kambaramayanam to Tevaram to Tirumurugarupada, the degree of difficulty will increase. But this is not equally applicable to the Sanskrit. Though Sanskrit was spread all over India, it was protected by the intelligentsia against erosion and mispronunciation with great respect, diligent regard, and delicate care. Moreover, Sanskrit remained a language of literati and not the spoken language of the common man. Now then, in the light of the above, consider the fact that effectiveness of the mantras is totally dependent upon the correctness of pronunciation. To safeguard against its deterioration, a whole caste of people had been tasked to do just this job from generation to generation. It is a fact of life that they have been doing this very job over thousands of years till as recently as the arrival of Britishers in this country, with the concomitant historical changes in all walks of life, as every strata of the Indian society. Anyhow, the point to bear in mind is the fact that none of these researchers have disproved the anaditvam of the Vedas. Now, we should try and understand as to how the Vedas' correct pronunciation and sound was saved and guarded against corruption. This was mainly done by foolproof methods of adhyayana to be elaborately covered in the subsequent paragraphs. Methods of learning, practicing, and chanting of Vedas. Without resorting to writing, our ancestors evolved certain methods for learning Vedas to include chanting, practicing, memorizing, and continuing the process from generation to generation. This was done so as to ensure that there could be no error creeping in whatsoever in even a single letter or its pronunciation of Udattam, Anudattam, or Swaritam, with the main purpose of ensuring that there will be no diluting of the effect of the mantras despite the passage of time. There was a calculation of time as to the duration in which a letter was to be uttered. This was a matra. There could be sounds of half a matra or double matra too. One of the parts of Veda, by name Siksha, even clarified as to how the breath was to be controlled, by which a particular part of the body will vibrate to enable production of a particular akshara. Veda swaras have been related to the swaras or different octaves in music, sounds of animals and birds, so as to correctly identify the similarities and differences in the pronunciation of Veda swaras. Each mantra is something like a sentence. Words are shabdas. Each shabda is made of so many letters or aksharas. There are a number of methods of chanting the mantra which are simple to start with and intricate as you progressed. The idea is to chant the same mantra in so many different orders of set patterns so that the original patterns get etched in one's memory indelibly. The various methods of chanting of the Veda mantras in an ascending order of intricacy are Vakyam, Padam, Kramam, Jata, Mala, Sikha, Rekha, Dvajam, Dandam, Ratham, and Ghanam. We call some Purohits as Ghanapadigal. They are people who have learnt and mastered all the above methods of learning the Vedas till the Ghanam stage. When we listen to a Ghanapadi, we can make out that he is chanting the Veda in a structured way. Though we may not understand the mental gymnastics involved, it is a very pleasant experience to just listen. Main point to grasp is that through such intricate weaving, the aim is to retain the Veda in its original content, shape, and form for eternity. Pada Padam. Vakya Padam or Samhita Padam is to practice the chanting as it is. This is the first method. Pada Padam is the second method. When the mantras are in the form of sentences, the words in it will join. This is known as Sandhi, which means joining or meeting. In the English language, words do not join, or if they do, They do not lose shape or change too much. For example, more plus over, moreover, where plus with plus all, where with all. Losing a single letter I in Tamil, the Sandhi is more prevalent. In Tevaram, Tiruvasagam, Tirukural, and Divya Prabandham, we find that the words join in such a way as to become unrecognizable. The condition in Sanskrit is even more complicated. To teach and learn the Veda mantras by correctly separating each sentence into its component sounds and padas in Padapatam. Kramapatam. This is the next stage. In this, the first word is added to the second word and chanted. Then the second word is added to the third word and chanted, and so on till the end of the mantra. For example, first join the first word with the second to make 1, 2. Then the second and the third to make 2, 3. Then 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, and so on. When we read the sasanas, we often come across Kramavit as an affix for some names. That means that he must have learned the Vedas up to the Kramapadam level. We do not note that Tamil Nadu had many Kramavittans. Jatapatam. This is the next step. In this, the chanting of the Veda is done by joining the first word with the second, then second with the first, then second with the third, then third with the second, and so on. Pictorially, this would be like this: 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 4, 5, and so on till the end of the words of the mantra. Someone who had become an expert in this was known as Jatavallabhar. Sikhapatam. In this, the chanting went something like 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Ghanapatam. This is even more complicated. There are 4 methods within Ghanapatam in which the words and their order is changed by way of a number of permutations and combinations. If I try to explain all that, the explanation itself may become too abstruse and complicated. Suffice it to say, think of how we will take care of a medicine which is rare and has the power to save lives from chronic, debilitating, and fatal diseases. Our ancestors, who were aware that the Vedas were powerful enough to protect the whole world and benefit all the life forms, devised these means to study and by heart the Vedas while simultaneously ensuring that the slightest deviation from correct pronunciation is obviated. In the Samhita and Padapatam, since the chanting is done as per the natural order of the mantras, they are called the Prakriti Patam. The other methods are known as Vikriti Patam. Krama Patam is not totally deviating from the natural order. The other 8 methods are known together as Ashtavikriti. There is a shlokam that lists the methods is as under. Jatamala Sikharekha Dvendanda Rathoghana Ityishta Vikritya Prukta Krama Purva Maharshibhi. From time immemorial, Maharshis have evolved these simple but clever methods to guard against the erosions and aberrations over time. If Vedas were to survive without any change in intonation, pronunciation, and deliverance, they felt that all these methods had to be learned successively and progressively as a constant, continuous, and assured check on correctness. To motivate the student to learn the progressively more difficult methods, each successively method was supposed to be more powerful than the earlier one. Samhita Pat Matrena Yat Palam Prochyate Pudaihi Patetu Tvigunam Vidyat Krametu Cha Chaturgunam Varna Krame Chatagunam Jatayantu Sahasrakam. Padapatam is twice more effective than Samhita. Krama is 4 times more effective. Then Varna Kramam is 100 times more effective. Jatapatam is 1000 times more effective, is the meaning. When our ancestors have taken such care to see that the Anadi Vedam never loses its shape and effectiveness by such foolproof methods to undertake a study to estimate its age by way of analysis of their wear and tear is being daft to say the least. I can only hope that such people may change their attitude at least after reading this. Divine utterance. When we say that Vedas are not man-made and that they are aporshayam, meaning not man-made, not to believe this is not very correct on anybody's part. Not only in our country or religion, in every other religion too, it is claimed similarly. Jesus Christ says that whatever is in the Bible are not just his words, but that of God, his Father. Muhammad Nabi gave out Allah's orders only. Say the Muslims. What we call Aporshayam, they call it revealed text. It is the divine utterances which have been made available to the masses as religious texts. Not only religious texts, even scientific discoveries are made like that only. In whatever field, when you become involved with total concentration, oblivious of all other considerations, the reality becomes revealed, discovered, or researched and found. That is how Archimedes found the flotation principle, causing him to go shouting on the roads, Eureka! Reality reveals itself in a flash of intuition then. Einstein also claims that his famous theory of relativity was not a result of brain function but a flash of intuition. When all these things are agreed upon, it is sheer injustice not to accept that those Indian rishis of yore, with the purest of motives and perfectest of clarity of purpose and intention, could have been the seeds of the Veda mantras flashing in the sky or space of their hearts. Om Shri Mahapiriva Sharanam.